So Elias Davis, welcome to the Career on Life Show, man.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hanging out here.
Yeah.
So what's your story, man?
Well, big question. Good question.
We're here in New York, just a few blocks from your home, man.
Exactly. Well, so I guess things didn't start here.
Yeah.
They just are here now. So I was born and raised in Miami. Until about
nice party area, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice place to grow up in for sure. I mean, there's definitely I can remember when I
Closer? Oh, okay, cool.
Growing up in Miami, things were. I mean, I'm trying to remember when like all of my friends started going out in like the South Beach area.
Sure. Like Nikki Beach area over there. Or?
Well, no. So like South Beach, so like
Okay,
Lincoln Road, and there was a lot of like 18-year-old or under parties and whatever. Yeah. I don't know. It was definitely a nice place to grow up.
Sure.
But I grew up in a very concentrated South American community. Mm-hmm. Essentially, everyone that I grew up with is like immigrated from South America to the U.S. My family's Peruvian.
So in 2015, for Rotary, I lived in Peru for 2 months.
Wow.
And
Where?
I was in Lima,
okay.
Arequipa, Cusco.
Where in Lima? Do you remember?
I don't remember which. I know there's a whole bunch of different sections. I don't remember which section of the city I was in. It was a nicer section.
Okay.
In like a newer apartment, but like.
Okay.
I have a lot of affinity for Peru. It's a beautiful country.
What did you think about the food?
So the first time I had anticuchos was incredible. I would have that any time. I didn't do so well with.
Did you try guinea pig?
I had some cuy. It was pretty good. I didn't do as well with like a lot of the fish types, like raw fish types.
Okay, like ceviche, yeah.
Ceviche. I just didn't do. I had a little diarrhea, so it is what it is. First time, then it was good after
exactly.
that. Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of love for Peru.
So anyway, I grew up in Miami. Unfortunately, my father passed away when I was 15. So my mother actually decided to move the family from Miami to Peru. So I actually moved to Peru when I was 15.
Wow.
And then was there for about a year and a half. Graduated.
You were living where at that time? In Lima?
In Lima, yeah. Graduated high school in Lima and then came back to the U.S. for college. I mean, the story is my entire family is filled with physicians. I mean, everyone in my family or everyone that I know is either a lawyer or a doctor or somewhat of a businessman, whatever that means. And so since I was kind of born, I mean, you'd asked me when I was 5 years old what I wanted to be, and actually my father was a physician by trade, not by practice. He went into business, but I think, and even my brother and all my uncles are physicians now, but that was kind of the path that I was put on or put myself on since very early on. And I think, obviously I got involved with starting my own business and then switching my major and figuring out that, if I really did want to have an impact, it didn't necessarily mean I had to be a physician. And that's kind of what pushed me on to the crazy wild wind of different experiences of working on Wall Street and being a PM at Google and working at a handful of different startups. And now
a broad spectrum of experience. Like how does that happen? You being both on Wall Street and then a product manager at Google. It just seems like those are two way different types of people, but they're both you.
Yeah. So look, I think it's funny because someone just asked me on a different podcast, but I think it's important to always be true to who you are, right? And I think it wasn't necessarily it's not that I didn't want to be a doctor. It's that I always. Being a doctor wasn't enough. And when I say that, it's obviously physicians are incredible and the work that they do is incredible, but I'm the type of person that always needed a little more. So I always, even when I was pre-med my freshman year in college, I started a company that had something to do with the medical and health sector, but I always had like an entrepreneurial bug to kind of do a little more than just take my pre-med classes, check the boxes, and apply to medical school.
Sure.
So I think that bug is what kind of pushed me into, switching my major, trying different things, applying to different industries. And I mean, I think if there's one organization, I mean, there's, I guess, a handful of them, but one of the big organizations that actually was pivotal in me making that decision to switch from being pre-med to trying something else and switching my major to computer science is an organization called Management Leadership for Tomorrow. It's a organization that was founded by an individual called John Rice, who's a former MBA executive, Harvard Business School alumni, et cetera, et cetera. And his vision was, look, I'm going to grab all these dedicated, motivated individuals that are in college. I actually think he might have started a program for MBA, but then he switched to something called career prep, which is what I was in. And essentially the goal is I'm going to bring all of these individuals that are like-minded into the setting of meeting essentially corporate America.
Sure.
And that's where I had the exposure of like, you know, I think the first event that they flew us out to was here in New York at Goldman Sachs, where the keynote speaker was the head of healthcare investment banking. Which for me, I didn't even know what investment banking was.
Right.
And to be honest, I didn't even know healthcare had anything to do with finance. And it really opened my eyes to like, look, I'm really passionate about healthcare, but I could do something else with it instead of becoming a doctor. That's kind of what I actually think that event was like. You know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I flew back to college on Sunday night, and then on Sunday night, changed all of my classes from pre-med to computer science in my junior year of college, and then I guess the rest is history in terms of what happened after that.
So what was, I guess, the family reaction to that shift? Was it acceptable? Was it not acceptable? How did that go?
You know what? I think, you know...
I had my master's degree, and I was teaching school, and I was like, you know, screw this, I can't do this. And I ended up, like, it was not a good reaction from the family. So how do you, like, what was that like? Was it good, bad? How'd you handle it?
Look, I think, you know, I come from a very traditional Jewish Hispanic community where, like, yes, the majority of people either become a physician or go to law school or do something in the family business or whatever that is. And I think, do I think my family accepted it since day one? Yes, I think they've been very supportive, but they've also, at some periods in my career, a lot of it has been, okay, so like, what does this mean? Like, what are you doing, right? And throughout the process, they've gotten to understand a little more about what this is all about. But yeah, there's a risk associated to it. And I think as things progress, there have been, I mean, in the past, historically, there's been ups and lows, and and I think that's part of any career. And I think just getting an understanding of a different type of career has been part of the process.
So you mentioned starting businesses in college. You've been through a few different iterations. If you had to look at it, you know, how does, you know, what you do now, how has that evolved, you know, through the different businesses you started?
It's a great question. So I started one business, but I've worked at a number of businesses since, right? So I went from interning in college at pretty large companies like Pfizer and Credit Suisse on Wall Street. I then, my first job out of college was at Google, so also a very large company. And then I left Google to join two different startups, one that had raised a significant amount of money in like the hundreds of millions of dollars, and then another company that hadn't raised as much. And I think that every single experience kind of gave me a different perspective, different insight in terms of, you know, how to run a business, what does product development look like in different iterations, different sizes, different amount of resources, and it's kind of helped me get to where I am today, right? So today I work at a venture fund. We invest in early stage companies. We roll up our sleeves and actually help the founders grow their businesses. And a lot of the operational experiences that I've had in the past have helped me not only get to where I am today, but be successful where I am today.
So I guess looking at that then, like as somebody at a venture fund, like how do you decide who's the right person to invest in? Like, is it, you know, do you have to have a lot of trust in the founder, or is it like, you know, like you're looking at future value? Like what matters, I guess, the most to you in deciding who to fund?
Look, I think
that's an easy question.
Yeah, so I think everything matters, right? Like, we have part of BNSG's Capital's process is meeting the founder, putting that company through a filtering process where we essentially score the different parts of the business. So whether it's intellectual property, whether it's product, whether it's the founding team, whether it's total addressable market size, whatever it is. I mean, in terms of what we bet a lot on, yes. I mean, a lot of the companies we invest in, because we're early stage investors, are betting on the founder. I mean, betting on that, through the ups and downs of the difficulties of starting a business and growing a business, the founder is the right person to go through that experience and come out on the other side successful. Because a lot of the businesses that we invest in sometimes are even pre-product. Sometimes they're literally an idea on a napkin with no team, no product, no anything.
Wow.
You need to do that. You need to take a bet on the founder. And then when you look at a little more mature businesses that have, $500,000 to $2 million a year in revenue, yes, I think it's still about the founder, because at that point, even though they have a business, it might not necessarily be sustainable, right? They're spending a lot of cash, they're raising a lot of cash. And so yes, you're starting to look at a handful of different metrics, but still taking a bet on the founders is important.
Do you find, you mentioned there a lot of cash going into companies, and I think Amazon had 14 years before they were profitable or something like that?
Right.
So do you find that since the economy's changed a lot since 2008, do you find that the amount of funding companies are getting, or the way that you're looking at funding, has changed?
So look, I think, if you ask any founder, raising capital isn't easy, regardless of, whether it was 2009 or if it's 2019.
Sure.
I think fundraising is always a difficulty for a founder. Do I think things are different now? Yeah, I think that there is a lot of money. I mean, you can read reports online, but there's a lot of money being poured in particularly different sectors. So mental health is an industry that has seen a lot of venture capital go into. I'm trying to think of a handful of different industries. Podcasts. So did you by any chance meet Jonathan Gill of Backtracks?
Yes.
So Backtracks is actually one of our investments.
Got it.
And actually I introduced Jonathan to Donnie and got him onto the podcast. But I think that's a perfect example of it. I think the podcast space has exploded in the last couple of years.
It's probably going to hit $1 billion in ad revenue this year.
Exactly.
Incredible.
So Spotify has acquired a handful of companies like Anchor, and what Jonathan and his team are doing is absolutely unbelievable. I think it's truly game changing. I think that there's a massive industry, and as we've seen, I think there's been a lot of money being poured into the industry. I mean, Luminary, there's a company called Luminary Media.
I guess my hesitance with Luminary is I just don't know how many people are going to handle a paywall like they have set up. Just because a lot of listeners, they like free stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I don't personally know the founder behind Luminary. His name is Matt Sachs, and he used to work in Ventra NEA, which is a large fund.
Sure.
They've raised a lot of money, and I'm not 100% sure on the intricacies of what they're doing and how things are going. But look, I think that's just a testament of the opportunity that larger funds like NEA see in the industry. And so that's super exciting.
Does he want to open the door? I find this to be a very intriguing conversation.
Yeah.
I just feel like, with what you guys do, you have a major pivot in what the industry could do, based on who gets funded, who doesn't get funded, where you see things going. So I guess in terms of, let's take a look at how many people are trying to pitch you guys. How do you handle that? Because I imagine you must get a lot of unsolicited emails, unsolicited phone calls. How do you handle who even gets the time to present to you guys?
So look, I think a lot of the deals we're getting. So VC in general, right? Yes, you could go on a larger fund or even our fund's website, find our contact information somehow, depends on how scrappy you are. Find us on LinkedIn, send us a note. I mean, look, to be honest with you, finding someone's email nowadays it's very easy to do. But look, a lot of, so yes, the answer is we do get a lot of emails that are cold emails that we've never heard about these companies. And to be honest, we treat everyone equal. I mean, I think
I'm just curious. I know Mark Cuban's actually been pitched a lot of ways with cold email. And
yeah.
He's actually invested in a lot of things.
Yeah. So look, I think every opportunity is a brand new opportunity. We valued opportunities clean slate. During our process of filtering deal flow, which I could talk about in a minute, but also, look, it's important to have references on the people that are pitching you, right? Even throughout our process, we have a deal flow filtering process. Then we put investment committee or investment memos together to then be evaluated during our investment committee. But at the end of the day, throughout the entire process, we are calling up individuals that know the founders, individuals that have worked with the founders or worked for the founders, or the founders have worked for them. We speak to we do a bunch of reference calls to obviously check on, the past and historicals of the founders that we're looking to invest in.
So in terms of, you mentioned that deal flow process, what does that look for you in managing that? Because I'm sure there's probably a certain number of people you can work with in a given year. So how do you manage all that?
So there are traditional funds that limit the amount of deals that they do a year. We do not do that at BNSG.
Got it.
But what we do have is we've instituted a very structured process. So we're very thoughtful of obviously the time we're spending, because one, we have 50 or close to 50 portfolio companies, and two, we're not a large team, so we need to allocate our time intelligently to make sure that we can evaluate the things that are coming through. So what we have done is, essentially how it works is we meet a founder or intro to a founder. They then schedule an intro call with us. We learn more about their business. We essentially take notes on that conversation and pass all of that information through somewhat of a scoring card or filtering process for deal flow. At that point, let's just arbitrarily say the scorecard has 5 different sections: team, total addressable market, IP, product, et cetera, et cetera. We score that. If it gets over our lever, then we push it on to the next round, which is we ask them for a whole list of things, whether it's investment deck, financial model, et cetera, et cetera. We then write up an investment memo, like a 10 to 15 page document evaluating the entire business up and down. And then we take that to an investment committee. At that point, we essentially evaluate it internally on whether we want to make the investment, and if we do, at what size. And that entire process takes anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks.
So for you, what industries are you most interested in right now? Which ones do you think are the biggest focus for you?
So it's interesting that you ask. So traditionally, there are funds that focus specifically on one industry or multiple industries. We focus on every industry.
Got it.
So we have close to 50 companies in our portfolio, and across our portfolio, we have everything from home insurance to podcasts, analytics, to construction, real estate, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. So we evaluate every opportunity, but personally, obviously I love Backtracks. We're super excited about what they're doing. I believe you met FitSpot as well. Yeah. So FitSpot is actually also one of our investments. Super excited about what John and Sammy they're up to. I'm trying to think. Healthcare, obviously, just given my background as pre-med and experience in that space, is super interesting to me. And yeah, look, we evaluate every opportunity. I think those are just some of the industries I'm super personally excited about, but we evaluate every opportunity equally. So, yeah.
How are we doing on time, guys?
We got 15 minutes.
Okay, good, cool. So I can keep you going for hours with this. I want to make sure we're monitoring. Yeah. So I guess to take a look at it then, we've looked at a lot of the metrics. We've looked at a lot of the people you're working with. But for you, why do you do it? What motivates you? What gets you up every day to do this?
It's a great question. I think, I've had a handful of experience in the past that in some people's eyes are their dream jobs. People go to Google to be there forever. And I had an absolutely incredible time there. What I like about my job now is that things are different every single day. One day I'll wake up and go work at Sammy and John's office at FitSpot and help them do X and Y things. I think the reason I love what I do is twofold. One is we find, invest, and help early stage founders build out their visions. I guess 3 things. 2 is we actually roll up our sleeves and help them. So it's not like we just invest the money and disappear and hope that our investment.
I don't hear a lot of firms that talk about that.
Yeah. So we, our firm is founded by former operators, and I have some operational experience. So actually diving deep and helping the companies we invest and grow is extremely important to me. And then look, at the end of the day, it's about helping other people succeed, right? As a former entrepreneur myself, being able to back entrepreneurs, help them, as well as helping people within our network get hired by the companies we invest in. I think it's just an overall great experience of every day is challenging. We're able to help people in capital and in operational experience, and there's a massive upside, right?
Cool. So I guess bringing it back around to you.
Yeah.
Let's say you are in a Peruvian restaurant.
Yeah.
You can pick one thing on the menu. What are you picking?
Wow, that's a big question. So now in the last year or so, I am now kosher, so I don't eat shellfish anymore. But I will eat raw fish, so ceviche is probably on the top of that list, even
Nice.
though you didn't have the best experience
For
with
the first time, it was better after that. I gotta tell you though, man, I loved anticuchos. It was so good. I guess there's something about a little cow heart. That's a good day.
Exactly. It's definitely on the top of the list of the majority of Peruvians, for sure.
Did you do any did you go out to like Ica and do any of the sand dunes or anything like that, or?
I have not been to
That's a
Ica.
fun
I know that.
experience.
I know a bunch of people that have. I have done the Cusco Machu Picchu trip.
Got it.
Which I did probably close to 15 or so years ago, and I'd love to do it again. It's absolutely beautiful, so I definitely recommend it for anyone who wants to get out there.
So I guess taking a look at it then, like what's something you believed at 21 that you don't believe now?
Wow, massive question. That I believed at 21 that I have proven wrong now. Look, I think when I was 21, I forget exactly where I was. I was probably starting my career at Google. And I think part of what has gotten me to where I am today is about identifying individuals that are doing what I want to be doing in 10 to 15, even 5 to 10 years time, and kind of trying to replicate the path they've taken to get to where they've been.
I
right?
love that because that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I give on this show.
So
find who has what you want and
exactly.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is, look, I did that for a long time. I've met, the CEOs of Wall Street banks by cold emailing them. I've met with the founders of multi-billion-dollar companies. And what I've truly figured out through the process is, yes, I can learn so much from them, from what they did right, what they did wrong, and what I can avoid doing wrong in my career. But at the end of the day, every single individual that I, in quote, qualify or not qualify as successful, which we can go on a tangent on what successful means for every individual, but
Yeah.
I think everyone kind of took their own path to get to where they are, right? Like if we look at the CEO of Goldman Sachs, he took a very different track than the CEO of Jefferies. And I think figuring out that I don't necessarily need to copy anyone else's path, but figure out what my personal path is, has been something that I've worked on for the last couple of years. So like if you look at the top 10 VCs in the world, right? Every single individual probably had a different story and how they got to where they are today. And I think that, right, like I'm a short-lived career at this point, but I work on that every single day. I work on trying to push the envelope, do things differently, do things that I'm passionate about, do things that interest me, because I need to create my own path, and I need to set an example for other individuals that are going to be looking up to me, hopefully,
Well, I guess taking a look at that now,
Yeah.
now I have to ask you, like, how do you define success? You set me up for it, man.
Yeah, I know. I get that. You know what? I think my definition for success changes every once in a while. I think that on a personal note, right, like when my father passed away, my family lost just about everything. We moved to Peru, we sold everything in Miami. It was a very rough time, and yes, I've had a ton of help to get where I am today from a lot of people that I care a lot about. But I think it's important that success is driven by achieving your own goals, right? I think that we live in a society today where everyone kind of looks at someone else's plate and they compare themselves to people around them. And what I've tried to do is, in establishing my own definition of success, is setting my own goals. And if I hit those goals to a level of satisfaction that's good enough for me, then I consider myself successful, instead of trying to judge my personal success on everyone else's definition.
I love that. Well, if we were to take a look at your biggest skill, then what would you say it is, and how do you feel you've created that for yourself?
That's a really good question. Look, I think a lot of people in their career or in their life focus on being the best at one thing. Like, right, there's a lot of doctors that go into a specialty of a specialty of a specialty. There's individuals that go, focus on one particular industry. I think what I truly enjoy is meeting people of many different backgrounds, of many different experiences, and being able to take a little from that. And that's why, honestly, I love where I am today working in VC, because that's literally what I do for a living. I mean, I spend time meeting individuals of all different types of backgrounds. Like if we just use Sammy and John and Jonathan Gill from Backtracks, we can use that as a perfect example. I mean, I didn't know any of them 8 months ago. And I've spent a lot of time with all three of them, and I've learned an immense amount from them that has made me who I am today, and contributes to that path that I'm making for myself. Yeah.
Got it. So if we were far in the future and we could sum up your legacy with a quote in your tombstone, what's that going to look like?
Wow. A quote on my tombstone. I forget the exact quote. I'm terrible at regurgitating quotes, but I think it has
paraphrasing works too.
I think it has something to do with, like, part of what I live for is not only having a real impact in other people's lives, but being remembered as someone that put other people in front of myself. I think creating my own path hopefully will inspire the following generations of not following in my footsteps, but creating a path for themselves that make them happy and make them what they consider successful. So.
Cool. Elias Davis, this has been awesome, man. Where can people listening find you, man?
So I could be contacted directly at elias@bnsgcapital.com. Yeah, or on LinkedIn.
Thanks for hanging out with me today, man.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Absolutely.